So, Tariq, I wanted to ask you, do you think that what, as we understood immigration in the past, is different from the way we understand immigration today, whether not just the flows, but also the character of people moving from one country to the other has changed?
I think it certainly has changed in terms of flows, but also in terms of the language we use to describe people. This is particularly true in Britain. The term immigrant or coloured immigrant used to be a very pejorative term that some politicians used. In fact, we don't use it now. If a politician used it now, they would be criticised. And of course, we were talking about people from the Commonwealth or the ex-empire countries like Pakistan, India, Jamaica, Nigeria, and so on. Some of whom thought of Britain, like the Jamaicans, as the mother country. So they didn't think they were going from one country to another, but returning from the edge of the empire to the heart of the empire, the metropole. Moreover, for ages in Britain we have Aussies, we have Kiwis, meaning New Zealanders, we have Yankees, meaning Americans, and no one ever thinks they're immigrants. They come and go freely, they stay either 1 year or 20 years, it doesn't matter. Nobody thinks they're immigrants. And then I suppose the most radical change, or one of the most radical changes that's taken place recently, is of course following the Treaty of Maastricht, the free movement of labour, or free movement of people, within the European Union from one member state to another. This has completely transformed flows across Europe, and certainly into Britain, because Britain didn't exercise its right to have a transitional period of limiting migration from the accession aid, Poland and so on. And so other countries did, but lots of Poles came to Britain, and lots of people admire their hard work and their dedication to improving their lives. But a lot of people feel they're too concentrated in certain areas, and so you get prejudice against them. And this prejudice isn't just from what one might call white British people. A lot of black and brown people feel there are too many Poles. And in fairness, Poles, not coming from a multicultural society themselves, bring a lot of stereotypes about black and brown people into Britain with them.
Indeed, indeed. I think it's a very dynamic situation, and the numbers have been large of people arriving, especially from Poland. And I would think it's been a further destabilizing factor, the fact that they came in a short time and then the economic crisis came in, so it hasn't been easy. Now, speaking about the diversity of people within Europe, let us speak about the diversity of people in our seminar. How did you find the mix during the exercises you did earlier this morning?
Yeah, well, I think you guys have ended up making things too easy for me. Because I thought I'd be mainly talking to people who work outside academia, though they may have some academic background like masters and PhDs. And I used to do that training 20 plus years ago, and I thought, oh, this will be interesting, it'll be a little bit of a hark back to the past. But actually, as you've said, they are a mix rather than mainly non-academics. And one result of that has been, and that's what I mean, make it easy for me, is that they've understood the issues that I've been raising, including, conceptual, theoretical issues, quite quickly, and they started pulling them apart quite quickly. Most of their conclusions, I feel, are ones that I would subscribe to myself, but sometimes they have well-argued preferences for an alternative position. So it's actually, I don't feel I'm so in such a different atmosphere. And I think if they can benefit from this exchange amongst themselves, where there's a high degree of academics and people with PhDs working with people who have more hands-on policy responsibility, I think that's good for each side.
I think there was a fair level of peer-to-peer, learning, because maybe those with more academic training knew what these exercises are about, or were more familiar still. But I think there was also what we discussed earlier, a little bit of bias in the selection in that they were a bit cosmopolitan, more cosmopolitan than the average,
yes.
whatever, European.
Well, as a very well-known American social scientist is called cosmopolitans, the frequent flyers. Yes, cosmopolitanism was very popular in the group today, and that's perhaps because they are a cosmopolitan bunch.
Yes, indeed.